Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Warm welcome to this channel. This channel is dedicated to the life, work, and teachings of a very beautiful being named Bruno Groening. If you're new to Bruno Groening or this channel, you can learn more in the link that's in the chat box or the link that is below. So today I'm going to talk or begin to talk about a subject I've wanted to talk about for years and also not wanted to talk about because it's controversial. And a couple of people have asked me, so I figure it's time. Well, not just I figure it's time, it feels like it's time. What do I think about the Bruno Groening circle of friends? It's a big topic. It's a deep topic. It's a controversial topic. People have very strong feelings. There are some people who are very much in favor of the Bruno Groening circle of friends. There are some people who are very much opposed to the Bruno Groening circle of friends. So I'm hoping to share a little bit to help people find the truth. I'm not going to sit here and claim that I'm going to tell you the truth. I'm going to do my best to be as accurate as possible. Bruno Groening said, "I am the only person on this earth who has no opinions." I'm not Bruno Groening. I'm not a master. I'm not a guru. So I wish I could sit here and tell you the truth. But all I can do is share a little bit of my knowledge, a little bit of wisdom, hopefully. So first and foremost, well, let's start with that. Let's take a step back from what do I think of the Bruno Groening circle of friends, and what do I think of anyone, an individual like myself, or a group like the Bruno Groening circle of friends, anyone or anything that is sharing the teachings of Bruno Groening. Well, first of all, what I think, it's not so much I think as I feel gratitude. I feel gratitude to anyone who shares this teaching and anyone who shares this message. And that there's a deep gratitude to the Bruno Groening circle of friends. They introduced me to Bruno Groening and to this teaching. I very likely would be dead if it was not for the Bruno Groening circle of friends. So to anyone who shares this information, just deep, deep gratitude. That's my first response. I'm very touched by anyone who does that. And it doesn't have to be, like here I have a YouTube channel and a website. It doesn't have to be like something big and organized, just anyone who shares this with anyone. Thank you. My second response is one of humility, both for myself and other individuals or an organization. As I said, I'm not a master, and I don't believe any person who's sharing Bruno Groening's teaching is a master. I don't believe any organization that's sharing Bruno Groening's teachings is perfect. Now, this really gets at the root of Bruno Groening's teachings, which is finding freedom from evil. So if a person is not fully free, and I don't consider myself fully free, I don't consider anyone who's sharing Bruno's teachings to be fully free. I don't consider any organization that's sharing Bruno's teachings to be fully free of evil. So what that means is all of us who are doing this work are going to be doing an imperfect job. It's inevitable. Me, another individual, a particular group, the Bruno Groening circle of friends, another group, all of us are going to fall short. For me, Bruno Groening and Christ, and to a certain extent the Buddha, I'm still sort of working through my own personal beliefs. On a personal level, they're like my standard of mastery. I fall pretty short. All of you who, checked out this YouTube video channel, not just this video, but channel, can probably tell, like, hey, this guy's not a master. Like this guy who's sitting here talking, maybe he has a little wisdom, maybe he's a little helpful, but he's a human being just like me. And I'm convinced Bruno Groening was a human being in some sense, just like the rest of us, and in another sense, not like the rest of us. My view is that he really maximized our human potential, and I'm nowhere near close. And I've met a couple. I've met one Hindu saint who is her name's Amachi. Who I put her in a similar class as Bruno Groening, just saintly and godly in a way that she seems superhuman, just as Bruno did. So that's the first thing to consider, whether it be me, another person who's doing this, the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends. We're all going to fall short. Bruno Groening once said that he didn't read a book, a single book, all the way through. I assume he just read passages here and there. Maybe he read a chapter. But look, here I am, and here are the other people who are sharing Bruno's teachings. We're reading Bruno's teachings. Where did Bruno get his teachings? He listened deep inside himself and communed, my understanding, he listened deep inside himself and communed with God. God and or Christ was his direct teacher. It's not the case for me, and I'm guessing for anyone watching this, and certainly not for the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends, certainly not for me, or all of us, probably have collections of spiritual books that we've read. So I believe this is very important to distinguish between the original teacher and the original message, and then people who are very much inferior on a certain level equal, on a certain level very inferior to the original teacher. And hence the teaching is going to be inferior. It's very humbling for me to get on this channel and talk about Bruno Groening and his teachings, because I'm I'm not a master. It's like a sports broadcaster who's talking about the highest gold medal athlete, and the sports casters maybe a so-so athlete, an average athlete, making commentary on the best of the best, the Olympic gold medalist. It's very humbling. So this becomes very important in the spiritual world, because in essence, for me, that's kind of what religion is people who are inferior to the original message and messenger. And again, both simultaneous on a spiritual level equal, but on a human level, on a lived out level, very much inferior, very much who are trying to share that message. That definition of religion can really, I often say religion is people who are not masters speaking for masters. That's where it gets really messy. When someone who's not a master says, this is Jesus's message. I personally can't take that seriously anymore. And, myself and other people who are sharing Bruno's teachings, I think we're a little more humble than that. But there is a danger of being well, this is what Bruno taught. Well, I'm not a master, and the other people aren't masters, and the Bruno Groening Circle of Friends is not perfect. And so all we can do is do the best that we can. And we will fall short. I will fall short. The Bruno Groening Circle of Friends will fall short. And anyone who doesn't recognize that, I would say, is caught in a delusion. So anyone who is this is the absolute truth about Bruno Groening, I personally believe they're deluded. I believe that's an evil belief. Don't want to criticize the person. We all fall short. We all take on negative, untrue thoughts sometimes. So, and I've fallen for it many times. I've thought I've got this figured out. And then life would happen. A challenge would happen. I'd be oh my gosh, I don't have this figured out. And Bruno Groening spoke about this. He said, the person who is not humble will very soon find themselves flat on the floor, meaning life will humble you. So, so I'm going to do a series on this topic. And so that's the first part. I think I'll stop there. Maybe we'll tune in for a moment or two of the recognition of not just, again, this question started, what do I think about the Bruno Groening circle of friends? It's a good starting question. But before I dive into that, let's get clear what we're talking about. We're talking about someone who, one time Bruno Groening, to his closest inner circle, his closest group of friends, he gave these teachings and all that he didn't share in public normally, and the people were like, oh my gosh, that was so deep, that was so. And Bruno Groening said, what I shared with you tonight is like dirt underneath my fingernails. Like for Bruno Groening, it was nothing. For the people who were listening, they're like, oh my God, this is the most advanced spiritual teaching I've ever heard. And Bruno Groening was kind of like, well, this is like learning to count to 3. And they were like, oh my God, this is the most advanced mathematics I've ever heard. So that's a good place to start this discussion of the Bruno Groening circle of friends, is to recognize the difference between a master and the difference between a master and then human beings who have a certain level of devotion and have, yes, of course, made a little spiritual progress trying to convey the message of that master. That's what I'm doing. And that's what the Bruno Groening circle of friends is doing. And that's what anyone who tries to share any kind of spiritual teaching, just about anyone who themselves hasn't found full freedom yet. And that's the last piece I'll end with, is it's a little hardcore. And I can't think of what Bruno said, something along these lines. I can't remember it exactly, but if I'm not free, I'm not free. If I haven't completely freed myself from evil, then I'm still under the influence of evil. And that's how I understand human beings. And that's how I understand the spiritual path, thanks to Bruno Groening's teaching. The teaching is to become free of literally being a servant of evil. So here I am, someone who is a servant of evil. Not 100%, but not 0% either. And I propose the same is true of every person sharing this teaching. And that would include the Bruno Groening circle of friends. Every single person within the Bruno Groening circle of friends is a servant of evil to some extent, as is every human being on this planet to some extent, unless they're a spiritual master. So I'd like to thank everyone who dropped by, and hello to my live viewers. Everyone who took the time to watch this. This subject is very near and dear to my heart. Not just, what do I think about the Bruno Groening circle of friends, but what did Bruno Groening actually teach? What did Bruno Groening teach about the human condition? We're all humans. What does it mean to be a human? Well, according to Bruno, it's to be right in between good and evil. And until we're completely free of evil, we're under its influence. It's a little hardcore, but it also can help us to understand ourselves and understand other people and understand life. Thank you so much for dropping by. I'm going to create a playlist on this very topic, so you can check it out. And I wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful day. Let's sit for a moment. Drink in the delicious energy that Bruno called the Heilstrom. very honored to be doing this work. I wish everyone a beautiful, beautiful day. Take care.